Good afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Monday. Okay, just when shares were bound to end higher today, a last-minute sell-off stopped the climb of local stocks here. The main index today dipped 0.4% to 6,827.17. That's despite quite a number of developments, especially on the vaccine front here. Primary of which, of course, is that over the weekend, the government has finally finalized or secured a procurement deal of 40 million Pfizer vaccines. That is the country's biggest order to date. Well, that should give the market some support. Roy Seguilar of First Metro said offshore events, particularly Fed movement, has been pulling the market down. Now, Fed members are taking on a more hawkish stance here. Take, for instance, James Bullard, who said inflation risk may warrant an earlier hike in interest rates than expected. That takes off, of course, from last week when officials sped up their expected pace of policy tightening. Now, Aguilar said investors are on wait and see mode as to what other members will say, causing that risk of attitude. But then again, vaccine news might still provide some level of support here for the trade. And trade enough, looking at today's leaderboard here, you have a number of mall and restaurant operators as well as suppliers advancing in today's trade. You have the likes of San Miguel, SM Prime, as well as Robinson's Retail and Ayala Land gaining, in fact, more than 8%, but that pales in comparison to what Emperador gained today. The stock is the day's best performer, up close to 6%. The liquor manufacturer just had a buyback transaction for 1.82 million common shares with an average price of 10 pesos and 21 a piece. Now, Emperador now at 10 pesos and 70 centavos a share, making it one of our top gainers year to date, up close to 6% so far this year. Now, let's go out of the main index for a bit to take a glance at Mondi Nissin. That's after its stabilization agent, UBS Singapore, did not purchase any shares last week for stabilization purposes, while following that purchase of 4.2 million common shares the week prior, Monde finally reversing track after a two-day sell-off rather. That's up 1.4% to 14 pesos and 50 a share. That marks a 7.4% increase since listing. And lastly, a stock which doesn't get talked about that often. I'm talking about Vivant Hydrocor. That just secured a deal for Cordova's bulk water supply project. That, of course, is in Cebu. It will construct a utility-scale desalination plant to boost water supply in metropolitan Cebu Water District by 20,000 cubic meters a day. The stock bucked the benchmark today, jumping 2.7%, now at 15 pesos and 40 a share. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. Government officials are cool to the proposal by Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship, Joey Concepcion, to have some separation between vaccinated and unvaccinated people in establishments. Concepcion told One News's Agenda that this is to protect both groups while ensuring safe operations for businesses. He says this has been an existing practice in other countries and can be implemented in the Philippines wherever it is applicable. Concepcion clarifies that denying entry for non-vaccinated individuals would be prohibited. But the health department says the proposal should first be studied to make sure no discrimination will take place. The DOH acknowledged that it can be used as incentive to get vaccinated. For Malacanang, it may still be too early to implement such move, but presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says they are open to studying the proposal as well. Now, the Light Rail Transit Authority postpones the opening of the newly built LRT-2 Marikina and Antipolo stations to July 5. The inauguration of the additional East Extension stations was originally scheduled tomorrow. The LRTA says their contractor has yet to finish signaling migration and other integration, which may take about 2 weeks. The addition of the two stations is expected to cut travel time from Recto in Manila to Masinag, Antipolo to around 40 minutes compared to 3 hours by bus or jeep. Passenger capacity is also expected to increase by 80,000 per day with the addition of the two stations. Now, here are some stories overseas courtesy of Bloomberg. China is backing the arrest of top editors of a pro-democracy newspaper in Hong Kong, warning journalists to not write stories that challenge Beijing. Ian Marlowe reports on Bloomberg Markets China Open.
Police officers kind of descend down on Apple Daily's news headquarters in Songkwano. This is something that's actually happened before, oddly enough, at Apple Daily. There were police who went there last August. But this time, instead of taking away, executives, they also took away senior editorial staff. So we have the top 3 editors of essentially the most feisty pro-democracy newspaper in the city being arrested and charged with publishing articles that violated Hong Kong's new national security law. And at the moment, no one is really clear what those articles were. Were they op-eds? Were they commentaries? Were they just articles quoting people that were saying things that were critical? So at the moment, there's a lot of questions in the air, and officials now are sort of defending themselves from accusations that they're cracking down on press freedom.
Ian, yeah, part of that clearly is that we just don't know what laws the media could be breaking in Hong Kong as a result of this national security law. Officials, of course, in Hong Kong said at the beginning of this process it will only affect a tiny minority of people. It doesn't feel that way anymore. What is the broader picture in terms of the erosion of media freedoms in Hong Kong?
Yeah, exactly. We had a lot of the U.S. came out strongly yesterday condemning what happened in Hong Kong. You've got all sorts of human rights organizations from Human Rights Watch to Amnesty saying this amounts to a total crackdown on freedoms of the press here, which are obviously guaranteed under the basic law. The officials, like John Lee, the security chief in Hong Kong, have been, really stressing that what they're doing is not cracking down on ordinary journalism work. What they're doing is cracking down on, journalism that falls afoul of the security law. But at the moment, again, no one is quite clear what sort of journalism falls afoul of the law, what sort of protest falls afoul of the national security law. A lot of questions about what is legal and what is illegal in Hong Kong now. Officials are batting those away, saying it depends on the context, it depends what's happening at the time, how you say it, how you do it, how you write it. And at the moment, that's just left a lot of open questions. And basically now China came out yesterday praising Hong Kong police for arresting these editors and essentially warning people, don't challenge the bottom line of national security. And they said press freedom is not a shield with which you can break laws.
Now, from Hong Kong, let's head on over to Japan, where Tokyo 2020 is finally happening in a few weeks. Kurumi Mori takes a tour inside the Olympic Village in Tokyo, where athletes have to strictly abide by a number of rules.
This is the first Olympics in a century to be held during a global pandemic. We're here at the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Village, where athletes will have to abide by a number of rules. It's located in the Harumi waterfront district in Tokyo, away from the center of town. Built on reclaimed land, the apartments and the village plaza is set to welcome about 18,000 athletes and officials from all over the world. Let's start with the bedrooms. All of the Tokyo 2020 beds are made out of very hard cardboard. It's stronger than wood. If you look at the bed frame, see that? But apparently it can hold up to 440 pounds, so no need to really worry. The mattress, though, is pretty comfy, I think. It looks a little small, though, no? Tokyo 2020 is aiming to be the greenest ever Olympic Games. The frames will be recycled into and the mattresses will be converted into new plastics. Next is the place to eat. So this is the main dining hall of the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Village. This entire dining hall at one time can fit 3,000 people. They've lowered the capacity from 4,000 because of COVID. If you've ever wondered what a meal for the world's top athletes looks like, here are some of the offerings. Braised beef and vegetables with sauteed cod with herbs, some grilled yellowtail, pork and okonomiyaki, and even some corn and veggie tempura. This is where athletes will eat their meals. Clearly there are these partitions in between each one of these seats, and when you're done eating, you're supposed to wipe it down yourself.
Now on to the Village Plaza, one of the main facilities that will function as a social hub with a bank, post office, a photo studio, and a number of other shops. The whole complex was made using 40,000 pieces of timber from 63 local Japanese governments. This one is from Kumamoto City in Kyushu. They'll all be taken down after the games and returned to be reused as park benches and other things. The Olympic Village will officially open on July 13th.
Now, from Tokyo to Texas, climate change is adversely affecting the world's power supply and causing blackouts. Lucille Yu has more of that story from a hydroelectric reservoir in China.
I'm standing in front of the Lujiazhou hydroelectric power plant here in South China's Guizhou province. We're here today because the threat of blackouts is shaping up to be a global issue, with shortages already in southern China and looming in places like Texas and California. Hot summer weather and a booming industrial rebound from the pandemic has led to increased demand for electricity, which has put pressure on power plants. In the U.S., much of the nation is bracing for blackouts this summer. California's grid is being swamped with demand as temperatures are forecast to exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit this week, heightening fears of a sequel to the rolling outages that darkened parts of the state last August. Droughts are drying up reservoirs from Brazil to Taiwan, and energy prices are soaring across the globe amid a scramble for supplies. Japan, host of the Olympic Games this summer, is also bracing for higher temperatures. The government requested that utilities stock up on fuel supplies and consumers conserve electricity. In Guangdong province, China's biggest provincial economy, nearly 24 cities have already had to curtail electricity to some companies and factories during peak hours. And houses like this one and others in Guizhou and Yunnan provinces are partly to blame. Low rainfall in the region starting from fall last year means that reservoirs haven't been able to build up as much as normal, leading to less hydroelectricity that can be transferred to power-hungry cities. The problem is being compounded by soaring prices for coal, the main power plant fuel, thanks to safety crackdowns at domestic mines. Citigroup says that the current weather outlook is setting the energy world up for supply disruptions this summer and that Mother Nature could have surprises for markets. Here in Guizhou, people are just hoping for a little more rain.
Okay, this time around, let's have a quick check first of how Bitcoin is doing. Recall earlier how I said, according to Royce Aguilar, trading in the equity space is somewhat affected, of course, by the hawkish stance of the Fed. Well, that pretty much is the same here with what's happening in Bitcoin. That sell-off here, at least in the cryptocurrency, amid a broader retreat in assets like stocks and commodities. That, of course, comes on the heels, again, of that hawkish stance from the Fed. As you can see right now, Bitcoin is down by as much as 8 6/8%. It fell as much as 9% earlier. Again, it's now at the 32,000 level. It's 32,700 level, again, down by 8 6/10%. And those are the biggest stories this trading day, June 21, 2021. Catch Businessworld live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I am Jes Delos Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.